Welcome to the Top 200 podcast with your host, Herschel Flora.
What's up, everybody? It's Herschel Flora from High School Top 200, and this is the Monday morning meeting. Welcome back once again for the third week. Welcome back to the 2023 season, and everybody having starting their preseasons. I saw St. Paul's have their preseason. I think against Rosa. Whited Upper Fielding. Hatopolda played Rafkill, I think. And so at least everybody's getting under the way. At least everybody is starting to have games, starting to have hitouts that aren't against, your own team, where you kind of pull back, you kind of don't want to go hard out, and all those kind of things, because everyone's still trying to make the team, everyone's still trying to make the cut, everyone's still got squads and not really teams right now, which is always like a hard thing to do when you're coming down to sort of your last weeks, and every week they have like a cut of 2 to 4 people, 6 people, whatever it is, and it's funny because every game matters, every game matters, even right in the beginning of the season. So it's good to see that there's games starting off now. I'm going to start going to games this week, either this week or next week. So those that have not sent their schedules in, please send in your schedules. Please send in your rosters as well, so that I know at least who you're considering or who returning players are. The top 100 Year 12 rankings is almost set, which leads on to the top 200 settings for the rankings, and trying to get those things together. If you're a year 11 and you're playing in the first 15, or at least trialing in the first 15, send through your names, and so that I can add you guys to into consideration for the top 60 year 11 rankings. So do all that stuff. Oh no, so I don't really say this much anyway at all when I do the podcast or anything like that, but I have to start doing it. I have to be a part of this kind of stuff, and so like and subscribe, make a comment, share it amongst your friends that the Monday morning meeting podcast is every single Monday, if I can figure out the technology for most of the part. You can send me your questions and I'll be answered on here. I won't say your name or anyone like that. If you don't want me to say your name or who sent me the message, just be anonymous. Anonymous. Sorry. I won't mention your name if you don't want me to. But yeah, like and subscribe, share it with all your friends and your families. Sign up to the website, hstop200.com, for all things that pertain to the first 15 high school level here in New Zealand, and rugby as a whole. Also with girls rugby too, which I'm pretty excited to start going to see. I'm starting to watch everybody's rugby pages as well on Facebook. I'm starting to follow and like all these pages, and getting a bit of a landscape for girls rugby and sort of how it's set out to. And I'm watching the Opiki as well. I'm real interested in the Super Rugby for the women's, and so it's been really cool. It's been really cool starting to see everybody get out there and seeing everybody put on their boots and chuck their mouth guards in and having a go as well. And I've already seen some fellas that have come back in shape, hard out from the off season. A lot of guys being built up, hit the gym pretty hard. Seen some big popo fellas drop a bunch of weight, put on some muscle, which is so cool to see. Because like those kind of things, especially in year 13, those kind of things matter a lot in terms of when you start getting, when you really start getting recruited and start getting agents talking to you and inquiring about what your plans are or where you want to be and your 5-year plan and all that kind of stuff that goes on when agents come up to you and hit you up about, what's going on with you for next year. So all those things are happening, and I'm starting to watch them now and see everybody's progress going on. So I want to start hitting some games. I've been looking at going to some Wellington games. My daughter's actually got a dance thing down there in Lower Hutt, I think, sometime in the next few months, I think it is. And so I want to start going down there, see some Silverstream games, maybe go to Wellington and hit up St. Pat's Town or Cole, head out to Porirua. Maybe want to see some of those guys out there play as well. Mana College and they've been pretty good. Porirua always have some really good players. Bishop Viard's got some good players. Aotea's got a good, solid young team that they have this year. So I'm always keen to go in there and see and see how everyone is. And I don't travel much down there, and I wish I could. And this is exactly where funding and stuff like that comes into it, because it's not as easy just to travel down there and the gas and the stay over, and it's not just me, it's like me and my 2 girls always come down, and we always drive around and travel around too, because they like to come with me, and so all those kind of things always have a cost. And so that's why there's the big push for Top 200 this year. hstop200.com, share it with your friends, get people to sign up, $5 a month. Hopefully forget a coffee for the day. And man, I just realized how much coffee was, because I don't drink coffee. I'm not religiously, that's just not what we believe in. So we don't partake in all that kind of stuff and that kind of caffeine anyway. And so when I found out how much coffees cost, jeepers, didn't even know, no idea. But if you can sacrifice a coffee, just one coffee for the month, to sign up to my page and get all this information from all over the country that nobody else can get, because nobody else does the work. I'm the only one that's here in this space, and I'm a pretty big guy, so I take up all the space, and I plan to take up all the space because I know that what I do is from the heart, and I try my best to give you all the information that I have in my brain into your guys' brain. And so that's what I'm starting to do, and that's what I want to do this year. And so everyone that is new to the page, everyone that is new to First 15 Rugby, because I know a bunch of your boys all starting to trial out this year, all coming from under 15s in, coming from second 15, under 16s, and you're starting in to First 15 Rugby. So sign up to hstop200.com, $5 a month. It's going to help tremendously for me to be able to go travel, find more games, go to more beautiful seeing just the venues of different games and different fields and where people play is always real cool to see. I mean, to me, Rangitoto is probably one of the best fields I've seen in terms of view, in terms of watching it, because you're just looking out into the ocean if you're standing on one side of the field, and it's real pretty, nice looking place to play. St. Ken's is another one that's cool. King's College looks like Hogwarts. I think the Cage is another interesting place in St. Peter's, just because the turf, that kind of stuff. Turf is interesting too, because I'm a big American football fan, and I know what happens with athletes and turf. I always wonder if that's the same thing with all these St. Peter's players, if they have the same kind of problems with how it is. I know with wide receivers, they don't really like turf that much because of the way in which they turn and roll their knees and ankles and stuff like that, where it's not as connected to the ground as you'd like to be, as if you were on grass, and some of those kind of things. So I always wondered that kind of stuff. But I'd like to get down to Wakatipu High School. I've seen pictures of where they play. It looks real beautiful. I like Otago Boys, and what I've seen, just the historical side. I was looking at the stand that they have. That always looks really cool. Things like that. Christchurch Boys always looks like it's a cool place to play, and having the bleachers and that kind of stuff. I've always wondered why schools haven't set up bleachers, because so many people come into games now, especially some of these big games. Like if you go to obviously Kings and Auckland Grammar is one of those ones where they sort of have to start hiring stands and stuff now to sort of seat everyone. But even if you go to a Rotorua, like Rotorua's got a cool one. I like the way that Dove does in their stands as well, and it's just made it so much better. Like when you get a Tauranga Rotorua match or a Hamilton Boys Rotorua, like you always have so much people there. Hastings and Napier is the same. It's just they just have so much people turn up to those games because they're a lot more competitive now. When Napier was just smashing Hastings all the time, it really wasn't that competitive, and people weren't really turning up to those games. But now that Hastings is the flipping juggernaut that it is, a lot of people show up. They show up now, and Napier Boys, they've got their little stand too. Then the whole other side, but even that other side, you could get 3-4 people deep. Trying to look over each other. The whole sideline's packed up. Both end zones are packed up as well. And so, I always wondered why we haven't really put that much into it in terms of field presence and presentation and the seating and all that kind of stuff too. I know, and I think for me, because I always look at South African rugby, their high school is just way more committed than what we are. They've just got so much more passion than what we do for rugby, especially even in high school as well. Like they just got so much into it, and some of their schools are so flipping cool looking, and they just got their stands full of all their students, where sometimes here they just don't show up. I mean, I think if I was a school that had dormitories or boarding houses or whatever, I would say that every home game, every boarder should have to go to the rugby game to support the rugby game. It's like a requirement, and just to build up that school spirit and all that kind of stuff, and just be supportive and have an atmosphere and all that kind of stuff. I think that's real cool. But yeah, I'm gonna get out there too. I want to try and travel to Palmy more this year. Not just see them at away games. I go to Hastings and Napier all the time. Go to more gully games down in New Plymouth, which is another field that is just iconic, sort of, and first in rugby here in New Zealand. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to all that kind of, to the travels and the games that are coming up. So one of the questions that I got asked, I had a few questions this week that I thought were pretty interesting, so I'll just do my best to answer it. The first question was, how does my son get into representative football? And I'm not going to read the name because I don't want to be named, but the idea I think that we are given as the public is that we the best is selected. And as much as I'd like to say that is true, it's not 100% true. Because the way that it is selected, even though that we have talent scouts and talent IDs out there, the way that it is selected is not by selectors. They don't select players to trial for rep rugby. You would think that was the case, and I'm actually answering this because even though I have answered this enough, every single year, there's new people this year, new people that needed to be explained to it again, because this is not really the environment of what they understand in terms of high school rugby. So when reps are selected and kids are chosen from your schools, your kids are chosen by your coaches. The coaches will look at the team and they will say, we believe that these kids deserve a shot to be, let's say, in the Blues squad. We believe this player has the qualities to be in the Blues squad. And so they get nominated by your coach to go and trial for the Blues under 18s. And then the selectors select from who coaches nominate. Now there's like special players that are selected only because they've seen them before, but majority of players are picked by your coaches. So for example, right, if I was a coach of a 1A school and they go, all right, it's nomination time for under 18 Blues, who have you got? I will say, I've got 27 kids that could make the Blues squad from my team. And I will just nominate everybody. And I'll just say, I'll just put everybody's name in and then go, now you fellas go out there and prove it. And hope that you get selected. Because my thing is, it's like, well, why wouldn't you put your kids or your kids' names through? Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you have a bunch of boys selected and go, yeah, I believe all these kids can make it. I should have that belief that all of these kids can make it. I should have at least the belief that my kids are going to give everything that they have to try and make this rep team if I offered them the opportunity to do so. So if you're a coach out there and they say to you, who are your nominations? I'll go, well, I've got 27 of them. Here's the whole list. And just take every kid's name. And then if they say to me, no, we need really serious contenders, I would then ask the question, then who do you think from my team should make it? If I'm saying everybody should make it, and you're saying that's ridiculous, not all of these guys could be that good, then I go, well, where's the middle of this? Who decides that? Because if you're asking me to decide, then I'm going to say 27 of them. If you're going to decide, then you tell me how many players you think I should have in there. Meaning that they have to go back and say, where are your game tapes so that we can watch the games. Then I'll be like, cool. Here's the USB, here's what's your Dropbox, and I'll be like, yeah, these are all our games. You pick out the guys that you want, and then I'll go with what you pick. If you want to put in that work to nominate, to see what night if my nominations are good, and you want to put in that effort to watch all our games, I'll be fine with it. It's like, cool. At least I know that comes from your perspective and your opinion from actually watching our games. But if you're going to ask me, and I'm a 1A coach, why wouldn't I just put everybody's names in? And then say, well, you deal with this then. Because I'm supposed to have the belief in all of my players that they at least have a shot to make the under 18 Blues, or the under 18 Chiefs, or the Highlanders, whatever you want to say. But if you're going to give it to me as a coach, I'm going to say this. And if you don't want to give me that opportunity, then you tell me which boys you like. Because if you don't really know, then I'm going to ask you, have you been watching our games? Or who do you know of my players? What boys do you know came back from last year? What rep teams did they make last year? Did they make a rep team last year? Did you talk to the coach of the rep teams last year that our kids made it through to and then are now nominated for that? Like, I would be asking all those questions. Like, do you want year 11s and 12s? Because I'll give you year 11s and 12s. Or do you just want my year 13s? Because I guarantee I got some year 12s that will bust a bunch of your guys' year 12s and your year 13s in your team. So for me, it's just like, well, if you don't want to do the work and you don't want to go through all the game tape that we have, then, you know, I'm going to give you everybody that I have. So that's initially how it is done. All coaches are given that opportunity, given that nomination to say who and how many. And they're going to say realistically how many, and they're going to ask how many. But I mean, if you look at, say, the Chiefs under 18s, have you seen how many Hamilton boys make those 2 teams of Chiefs under 18s? They've always got like 12 kids in there. They've always got a huge number of kids. Rotorua is another one that always has a huge number of kids. And why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you go, well, these are all the names, these are all the kids. If you want to cut it down, you cut it down. If you don't think I'm realistic, come to our trainings and have a look at our trainings, and then you can watch them. Here's a USB of all of our games. Send me your email. I'll do a Dropbox of all our games. This is our huddle account. Have a look. You know, all these kind of things. So when you ask the question, how does my son make it? Be the best at training. Be the best teammate. Be the best trainer. Be the best at giving the most effort. Be the best at being the first one to the huddles, the first one that runs in when the team is brought in. Be that guy that wants to do everything the best that they can and show your effort, and then hopefully that leads on to the coach seeing what you're able to do and what you're capable of and how willing you are to give everything that you have to the team, and maybe you'd make it in. But his opinion matters a lot in terms of getting your name submitted to the Chiefs under 18s or the Hurricanes under 18s. And then from there on, they can figure that out. So for me, when you look at it, just make sure that they have really good attitudes and they have really good perspective of what they are doing in First 15 Rugby and what they are doing and why they are doing it, and what direction are they looking at going with making the rep rugbies and onto it. Because if you want to make rep rugbies, that's cool and that's fine, even if that's as far as you want to take it. Be like, I just want to see if I can make the Blues and then see what happens then. That's awesome. It's awesome to have that perspective, because then at least you can understand where this kid wants to be and the opportunities he wants to make it there. And if anything else happens after that, fine, that's great. But in terms of making the Blues, all your region, you know, that is entirely up to the coach and if he nominates your name. So, like I said, if it was me, I'll nominate everybody. If it's up to the coach, if like there's a coach or your coach, be the ultimate teammate. Be the Draymond Green of your team and do everything. Be good at everything. You don't have to be the best at everything, but be good at everything. Do everything really well. Do everything with 100% effort. And no doubt you'll probably get noticed. No doubt. And because like one thing that New Zealand like are hard workers on the field. Not necessarily the most talented ones, just the hard working ones. The ones that take their initiative, as well as like to have a gamble and maybe this is going to work out if I try this. They like the ones that take gambles of we're not sure if this pass is going to go off, but I'm really going to put myself in a position to be able to make this switch. And so they want to see if you're nutty enough to do that stuff. And if it works out, it works out. And if it doesn't, and you did it with wholeheartedly, and then if it makes a mistake and you jump up, you try and correct it, they're even going, ooh, well, at least you try to correct it. didn't hang his head or anything like that. You know, all those kind of things. Hanging your head's another one that like coaches and selectors don't like. You know, dropping an F-bomb, then running off and then getting stuck into it is pretty much what they want, because they go, well, we know they're going to be upset, but we don't want them just hanging their head for the next 3 rucks. Like, then the next line out, he's just like still looking around and shaking his head and, you know, hitting his thigh and going, oh, he's still thinking about what he just did back there. It's like, bro, you've got to move on from that stuff, all that kind of thing. So those are all the things that I would look out for. But yeah, if you're someone to make the rep teams, that's what I'll do. That's exactly what I'll tell my son, and that's probably what you got to expect. Brown nosing coaches don't actually get you anywhere either. Doesn't really do anything for you. The other question I had was, which region is the hardest region to make the top 4? And that's from another person that doesn't want their name to be said, which is fine. And like I have said, and so like for you guys that are new here, the way that it goes is that you have your own all your own competitions and things like that, and then you play within your regions and you play knockout. The way that the Blues work is that the Blues will the 1A will play, whoever wins the 1A will play the winner of the North Harbour competition, then whoever wins that goes into the top 4. In the Chiefs region, the Chiefs top teams all play off against each other, from Wesley to Manurewa to even Francis Douglas, New Plymouth, Tauranga, Rotorua boys, Hamilton boys, St. Paul's, Peters and Johns. All those Saints. So the 3 Saints in Hamilton and then Hamilton boys are the ones that you want to pass, and then they do it of like a knockout round, and then whoever's standing out at the end is the one that represents the region, and then they will go Hamilton versus like a Counties, or a Taranaki versus a Bay of Plenty, and they'll play it off that way. So you can sort of get rid of the ones in your areas, and you play outside your areas, and you figure it out that way. And so that's how it works out for Hamilton. Hurricanes is the same, where they get the winner of Hawke's Bay, Poverty Bay, Hawke's Bay, Manawatu and Wellington. Then they all play off, and then the 2-1 standings represent. And so like even if you have like the competitions like the CNI or the Super 8, which goes into both of those regions of the Hurricanes and Chiefs regions, those things don't actually matter. And so it's all played out within your regions, and then the winners from your region go on, so forth till they're the last one standing within their region. And then they move on to the top 4. Same thing with the Myers Toyota Cup down in Christchurch. They play off whoever ends up in the finals and wins it. They play off against whoever wins down south in the Otago competition, and then the 2 winners will play off, and then whoever's at the end represents. And so like JMC last year, John McGlashan beat Nelson College, went through, played in the top 4, and it was their first time there, which was cool because Westlake did the same in the Blues region, where they beat Kelston boys in the finals, and then it was their first appearance there too, which was really cool to see. And then that's kind of where it stopped, because reality hit, I guess, and yeah. It's not an easy game when you get there. So now that you kind of sort of sped through all of that, the hardest route to get to the top 4, I used to think, was the Chiefs because of the Hamilton boys, and the Blues because of the 1A. So when you kind of think about it, right, apart from last year, like the last year was the first time ever that an Auckland school didn't go to the top 4, and the first time Westlake made it. But like when you think about the amount of teams that are in the top 25 from Auckland, from the 1A, the 1A always have 5 or 6 teams in the top 25 ranked. And so it's like always a hard one to sort of look at in terms of your games are going to be hard all year round. And if you look from a perspective of the North Harbour, you're almost thinking, oh, this is damn near impossible because we have never done it and we've only done it once and Westlake did it last year. Other than that, if you're like the North Harbour team, you're like, oh, no, we can't even really look at nationals because we pretty much know that we're going to lose to an Auckland team. And whoever wins that finals pretty much is automatic going into the top 4 for the Blues. And so you kind of think the 1A had it are going to go through, depending on whoever wins the 1A, they're the ones that are going to represent. And so I used to kind of think of it like that, as that being one of the hardest ones to go through. But I mean, like if you're an Auckland team, I don't know how hard that is or how different that is at all. But I mean, like if you're in Hamilton, or if you're in the Chiefs region, you're really just battling Hamilton boys. And as much as it's just that one team, it really is just that one team. And it has to take, like, even look at Rotorua boys who beat Hamilton boys in the finals of the Super 8, and then they lost the next week to Tauranga boys. And then Hamilton boys went on to win the national, represent the Chiefs in the top 4, and then win the nationals, then win the worlds, which South Africans don't like to admit, but that's just what it is. They won the worlds, Hamilton boys. And so, like, if I was to say anything, the Chiefs would be the hardest region to go through, because Hamilton boys, just that one team, always seems to be the big bad boss at the end of the game that just beats everybody. And that's Hamilton boys. Everybody else, you can still make it to the top 4 and then worry about Hamilton boys later. But if you're playing in the Chiefs region, you're just worrying about them in your first round-up. You're like, freaking heck, now we have to play these guys in our first hit-up. These are guys our first round game. You know, like, that's not what you want to see. That's not who you want to see on the other side of it in your first round of knockout for your region. Like, even when you think about the Hurricanes, and it's like everyone's sort of on the same level, but when you look at someone like Hamilton boys in the Chiefs region, it's like, it really doesn't matter. It's like once we hit them, depending on how far we get, once we hit them, it's like we almost don't have a chance. I think they've only missed out 1 year out of 10 years that I've been doing this. They've only missed out 1 year of being in the top 4. Every other time they've represented. Rotorua was the last time, I think, when they won their national championship. So from 2013 to 2022, I think Rotorua made it in 2014 or 15 or something like that. Oh, Nigel was in that team. Mugabe Black was in that team. Isaac Churchill was in that team. I think that was like the last time they won it. T-Man was there too, I think. I think if that was the right team that I'm thinking about. But for me, yeah, I think if it was the hardest route to the top 4, that would be the one, is the Chiefs one, based on just one team. And that one team is legitimate every single year of winning a national championship, as it is this year. who I'm looking at like as maybe the number one team in the country again this year, along with teams like Sacred Heart and Christchurch Boys, who are all returning some really good squads, and Palmy Boys is another impressive squad coming back, but they're going to be considered one of the number one teams in the country, at least top three. No, either one or two. And that's realistic, either one or two. Sacred Heart's probably the other one that's like, you can't really argue with the roster that they're bringing back. Just one of those kind of things, Which brings me to one of the other questions where they asked me how I rank, how do you rank teams? And like, sort of in the top 100 rankings, which is switch around every week based on your wins and losses throughout the year, and based on the teams that you play or the competition that you win, and also your scoring margin. I do it just like I do everything. It's all on opinion based. Don't have to take it for gospel or whatever. Don't put Bible on it and go, no, yeah, this is just all my opinion. All right. And everything is opinion based. You don't have to believe it. All I want for you to do is listen to what I say, have a look at what I'm referring to and referencing, and then go out to these games and go, I just want to see if Herschel's right about this kid, or I just want to see if Herschel is right about this team, and if they're better than my boy's team, or if he's better than my son, because that's usually what it is. Like, my boyfriend's better than that guy, Herschel's a liar. That's what this is for, so that you can have some kind of context for what you're watching, or who you're watching, or who your son is playing against, or who your brother is playing against, or your nephew is going up against, or your koro or your moko is going to be playing. Is like, this is what Herschel's saying about this team. This is what he said about our team. I just want to go see if he's right or wrong. That's really all it is, based on my opinion. Rankings are also based on my opinion, but I do base it off a few factors, like, let me explain. If you play in the Super 8, your win-loss column is going to be a lot stronger if you play in, let's say, the Wellington competition. What I mean by that is, if you look at the teams that are from the Super 8, you're looking at Hamilton Boys, you're looking at Rotorua Boys, Tauranga Boys, Hastings and Napier Boys, Palmy Boys, and New Plymouth Boys, and who did I leave out? Hamilton, Tauranga, Rotorua, Gisborne Boys and Gisborne Boys. So if you look at those 8 teams, if there was a team that lost all their games in the Super 8, and they lost them by like margins of, let's say, 7 to 10 points in every single game, that to me is more impressive than someone that wins 5-5, or that wins 4-4 in a Wellington competition. If there's someone in Wellington that wins 4 games and loses 4 games, I'm looking at that team in the Super 8 that lost all 8 games by, 7 or like 10 or less, and I'm looking at that team and going, I actually think that's better than that 4-4 team. Because every team in that Super 8, at least 7 of them are going to be ranked in the top 30 to 25 in the country every single week. So when you play your season in the Super 8, you have no easy game at all. Even that team that loses every single game is not a terrible team. They're just in the best competition. But if that team was to move down to your competition, where that team that was 4-4, and you move that 4-4 team up there to the Super 8, that 4-4 is not going to be 4-4. They're going to be 0-7. They're also going to be for and against way more against than for. Because the strength of your schedule of who you play matters a lot in what your season is and how you are ranked. For example, the weakest team in the Super 8 is Gisborne Boys. They're going to struggle a lot this year as well because they've got a bunch of new kids and that are young kids that they're going to need them to catch up as fast as they can. And I'm not trying to be sad to Gizzy Boys or anything like that because I respect them a whole lot. But what I am going to do is tell them, you need to step up fast and quick, because those boys that played last year in the Super 8 that have gone through all of this know what it's like to go week to week playing the best teams in the country one after the other. Now, I'm looking at Gisborne Boys and I'm saying Gisborne Boys is the weakest team in the Super 8. Their schedule, and I'm just making this up, is they're going to go from Hastings away, Napier at home, Tauranga away, Hamilton at home, Rotorua away, Palmy at home, and then New Plymouth at home. Then, in the middle of those games, they have to travel to St. Peter's in Auckland and play one of the best teams in Auckland, and then they're going to stay home to have Sacred Heart come to their home ground, one of the other best teams in Auckland, and have Sacred Heart come and play them as well. Now, even though your schedule is so hard, having the Super 8, being in the Super 8, you've also got two traditional games against Sacred Heart College and St. Peter's College, who are regarded as two of the best teams in Auckland almost every single year. And so when you look at strength of schedule, that matters a lot of who you're actually playing. Because if you switch those teams out and go, well, Gisborne hasn't won a game all year, and we've won, 7 out of our 9, I was like, well, who are those 9 that you've played? Because that's not a Hamilton Boys that you guys played. You guys didn't play a Hastings Boys. You guys didn't have to travel from Gizzy to Palmy and go step off the bus, just try and have a good game. And then you have to play one of the best backlines in the country. You didn't have to stand across from Palmy Boys and go, damn, look at that loose trio. It's so flipping fast. Yeah, you're going to go, oh, no, well, we played Porirua and we played Aotea, and then we played St. Bernard's, and then we played Silverstream. I was like, oh, okay, cool, check Silverstream. And say, oh, yeah, and then after that, we played Rongotai. You're like, oh, yeah, okay. Then it was like, and then you played Wellington. It's like, oh, okay. And it's like, oh, yeah, but then we went and played Tawa College. It was like, oh, okay. It was like, like the strength of schedules mean a lot more when you're playing in a week-to-week hard game every single week. Now, there's some competitions that have hard games, like the 1A is going, yeah, that's like us. It's like, nah, calm down, 1A. You don't have hard games every single week. And again, I'm not picking on schools, but some of you guys rest when it comes to Aorere. Some of you guys rest when it comes to TC. Some of you guys rest when it comes to Dilworth. And sometimes you just can't rest because sometimes those teams have amazing games and then you end up losing. So it's not like they're the hardest teams in the world, but you just can't catch them on the bad day because you're going to be one of the best teams in Auckland trying to take a break, and then that team's going, put a bit more respect on who we are, and then they're going to start, making some history and beating your team. Now, at the same time, it's not like the Super 8 where every single team is good. Every single team, you have to. You have to perform every single week. The other thing that the Super 8 has is how do you say it? Travel is like, traveling for games is a hard thing. And I've explained on here, and so everyone that's, followed this page for a while, they understand what I'm talking about. A true away game is when you have nobody from your side standing on the field cheering you guys on. If you have less than 10 people, 10 supporters, barring your coaches and all that kind of stuff, physio and whatever, if you've got 10 dedicated as parents that have the money and time to travel, and they're standing on the sideline and there's 3 of them, it's like, that's a true away game when you don't have anyone there or 3 people supporting you. That's a true away game. Aucklanders don't know what true away game is unless you're like Sacred Heart in St. Peter's, where they have to travel to Gisborne, where parents are like, we'll give that trip a miss. I don't feel like driving through the gorge and those windy roads, and it's like, that's a true away game. That's a true game where you're just like, shoot, we don't know anyone here. But I mean, like, you play in Auckland, like, it's an away game. Yeah, kind of, it's just not your field. But you're going to have 200 people from your community and from your school show up on the sidelines. So having a true away game is not something that Aucklanders know about. The ones that really know about it are probably the Super 8, the CNI, and also the Miles Toyota. Where if you've got their schedule where you have to go from, if you're Waimea, Nelson or Marlborough, and you have to travel down to like Timaru, Aoraki is another one, to travel that far, or you have to go home game, away game, home game. It's like, mate, that's so much travel. There and back, so much travel. And if you're listening to this and you own an airline, or you have a plane, or you have like your own chartered flights or whatever, and you can help out these teams by giving them like really low flights and really low costful flights, please reach out to them and help them. Please help them travel, because it's a big commitment. It takes a lot out of these boys to travel that far. And if you're sponsoring, and if you're in a position to sponsor those teams with their travel, please help out with that too, because a lot of these teams need that help with travel. When they have to go for these away games and stuff like that. But for me, that's how I look at rankings. It's like I look at the strength of the teams that you play, the for and against that you have, the win-loss record that you have, the travel that you also make, the benefits of staying at home. All these kind of things go into what your ranking is going to be. And if you lose or win from week to week, that's how I determine what this 2-week stretch looks like. If you ended up playing Rotorua boys and Hamilton boys one after the other, and you lost those 2 games one after the other, I'm not going to go, wow, that's a big surprise. It's like, no, that's bloody everybody if they had to play Rotorua and Hamilton boys 1 week after the other. It's like, yeah, that's not strange. That's pretty normal. Like, not everyone can just beat those teams 1 week after the other. Some people haven't beaten Hamilton for years. Like, the most celebration I've seen, and I was so privileged to be there when Hamilton lost to Toto. They hadn't beaten them for years. And you should have seen how happy they were. And I'm from Hamilton. And I'm not like a Hamilton fan. I mean, in all honesty, I used to hate them at school. I still kind of cringe at the uniform when I see the boys run up. But I'm proud of the boys. I'm proud of their achievements and admire the heck out of, those are probably my 2 favorite coaches of all time in terms of, actually in all coaches. Like, did I think about it? Yeah. Graham Henry, Mike Krzyzewski, Jerry Sloan, guys that I admire a lot, But I mean, like obviously Andy Reid now, but I would put Nigel and Greg there of like coaches that I admire as coaches for what they've done and the legacy that they have. But when I go for rankings, that's what I look at. That's how I judge how far they go up a ranking or how low they go a ranking. If there was a team that could come off and beat Hamilton Boys and Rotorua 1 week after the other, like damn sure you're looking at a top 5 team in the country, because you would have been beaten 2 top 5 teams in the country. And here's the thing, for those that are thinking about, like, if I beat a top team, do I just take their spot? No, you don't. No, you don't, because people have bad games, people have good games. Sometimes they collide on the same week. But it doesn't mean that you're going to beat that team, 4 times out of 5. If we had another 7-set game, it's like you're losing all 7 games. But on that day, you proved that you can be that good, that you can play at that level. You just don't consistently do it. But it's not like it's not there. It is there. We just need to see it more often. Then the rankings would go up more. That's kind of how I see it. That's kind of how I judge and rank teams, as by the consistency of winning and how consistent can they beat top teams in the country 1 week after the other. And so, I mean, if there's no doubt that you're going to be going, Herschel, what the hell are you talking about? How can we move from this place to this way? How did you drop us down this far? How come we're not ahead of them when we beat them in 1 game and then we lost 3 games after that and they won 3 games after that? It's like, well, that's kind of why. It's like, yeah, you had a good game and you proved that you could beat them, but after that you didn't win very many games after that. Well, you're going to hang your hat on that 1 win? No, even for myself, I have to, as much as like I would want to hold on to the fact that one team beat this other team, it's like, I just have to humble myself and go, nah, that's not right. They can't still be ahead of them. They have to drop back. And I have those moments too where I have to check myself and go, that's not right, bro. Come on, Hirsch, that's not right. And then I have to change up my rankings. So when you have a look at these rankings and you have a look at what I'm doing and blah, 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 whatever, no, you don't have to have sympathy for me. I don't really care, to be honest. I just like to hear your questions. So if you do have a question, go, Hirsch, why? Why are those guys still ahead of us? We beat them by 15 points last week. And like, please don't say we beat them last year. Don't ever say that to me. Ever say that to me, because I'm not going to care, and that is not anything that I feel like is of value to this evaluation that I'm doing of ranking teams up and down, because saying that you beat someone last year does not make sense in first 15 rugby or in high school sports at all, unless everyone from that team came back and everyone from your team came back. Then I'll be like, okay, got an argument there. But if you say, well, we beat them last year, it's like, yeah, now all your star players are gone. And their star players are a year older and still at school. That doesn't look good for you guys. So please don't say to me, Hirsch, what about last year where we beat them by 40 points? It's like, okay, unless all those boys are just going to stay, unless they're all young enough and they're all year 12s, you have a case there. But if you've got boys that have left school and other boys that have come up taking their spots, and those kids on that other team got older and they all came back, and it's just like, then that doesn't really matter to me. I don't know what else to tell you, but like, that doesn't matter. How is that an argument? You're comparing 2 different years with completely different teams. Does it make sense? But those are some of the questions that I got asked that I thought were really good ones. Probably because it's a reintroduction for a lot of people too that are watching the page now and that are having a look. But anyways, that's what I got for you this week. Please send through all your schedules. Please send through all your squads, that even if they're not totally picked right now, send through your squads to me so I know who's here and who's come back and who's moved up and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, Herschel Freund High School Top 300. Monday morning meeting. Later, Bolt.